Hello YouTube, this is Akos from MTB Videos CY. In this video I will be showing you how to bleed your Shimano hydraulic disc brakes using the bleed kit provided by Shimano. What you would need is obviously the bleed kit, some mineral oil, preferably Shimano branded, a set of Allen keys, a 7mm open-ended wrench, and a little plastic that's provided by Shimano to keep your calipers from sticking together. So let's start working. I would suggest starting by removing your wheel, and obviously you need to remove your brake pads in order to avoid their contamination. So it is highly recommended to remove your brake pads. Otherwise, if the brake pads come into contact with the mineral oil, then you will need to throw them away. There's no way of cleaning them. So as I told you, remove the brake pads. I've already done so. Next you would need to insert this little plastic into the place of your brake pads in order to keep your brake calipers from sticking together. So once it's in there, secure it with a pin. Alright, so the next step would be to open your bleeding valve. So there's a little bit of rubber in it. Undo the rubber to reveal the bleeding valve. Okay, so now we want to loosen the bolts holding the brake lever in order to allow us to rotate the brake lever and position it to the position we want it to be. So what you want to do is to tilt your brake lever to a 45-degree angle to the ground. So once you achieve that, secure the bolt, and here's where the interesting part comes. You need to undo your bleeding screw on the reservoir. Next, attach the bleeding kit to the reservoir. As you can see, the bleeding set has threads on it, so you can just thread this into your reservoir. Alright, so let's move back to our caliper. So the next step is to put some oil into the C-ring. You want to avoid any air bubbles in the steering and in the tube of the steering, so make sure you're very careful to push out any air bubbles. Okay, so attach your hose to the bleeding valve. Once you've secured the syringe into place, use the 7mm wrench and open up the valve by 1/8 of a turn. Alright, so once it's open, you can start pumping the oil into the system. As you're pumping it at the bottom, oil should start flowing to the reservoir at your handlebar. Okay, so you want to keep pumping until no air bubbles are present in in the oil coming out at the top of your reservoir at the handlebars. So once you've done that, close the bleeding valve. Now what you need to do next is to remove the syringe and tunnel the hose into a spare bag, and you need to open the valve so as the liquid can flow down. At this point, do not press your brake levers, otherwise air bubbles can get trapped into your system. A good idea is to tap your brake lines with something to make sure that all the air bubbles that are trapped into your system are flowing out. While this happens, the level at your reservoir will drop, so always make sure that there is enough oil in the reservoir. If the level goes down, top it up using the syringe. Okay, so once you're done with that, close your bleeding valve using the 7mm wrench, and now what you need to do is to squeeze, hold your brake lever squeezed in order for the liquid to be pumped throughout your system and push any air bubbles out of your system. So keep your brake lever pressed as firmly as you can, and keep opening and closing your bleeding valve at rapid successions. Always keep an eye on the oil level in your reservoir. If needed, top it up. Okay, so once you've done that, tighten the bleeding screw. And you can remove the tube. So now what you need to do is clean your caliper, and let's move to our steering to finalize our bleeding. So the final step is to operate your lever until air bubbles stop coming into your bleeding kit. It is suggested to move the brake lever around in order to free any trapped air bubbles. So you can tilt it forwards, then tilt it up. Try different angles that would help the air escape from the reservoir. so your brakes should feel pretty solid, not spongy at all. Finally, you need to remove the bleeding kit. Use the provided plug to prevent oil from coming out at the bottom of the kit. Unscrew it, reattach your bleeding screw. Once you're done, clean out the area, your calipers, your brake levers. This is to remove any excess mineral oil, and you're good to go. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video.